Have you ever been rejected by someone who claimed they wanted you simply because of something beyond your control? If anyone's ever made you feel like you're somehow too much, then this tale will speak to your soul. Stay with me because the turn this takes will absolutely touch your heart. Steam billowed through the frigid evening as the locomotive came to rest at Silver Creek Station. Ella Lanina Morgan descended from the rear carriage, gripping her weathered travel case. Her statuesque 6-foot frame threw an elongated silhouette onto the worn wooden planks below. Growing up in Boston, she towered over most gentlemen, a characteristic that brought years of sideways looks and hushed remarks. Oregon wasn't about seeking validation, though. She'd journeyed west searching for a new beginning, somewhere to truly fit in. And perhaps dare she hope genuine affection, the correspondence folded against. Her chest had seemed to guarantee exactly that. Half a year of written exchanges with William Prescott, a lumber mill proprietor whose elegant script and refined manner had drawn her in. Her stature had never come up in their letters. She'd never brought it up either. Their conversations stayed grounded cooking methods, wood commerce, literature they'd enjoyed. Something about it rang true. Something about it felt secure. Standing there in her handcrafted emerald wool gown, she steadied her breathing as the train's departing whistle echoed away. This represented her opportunity to start over. Yet the platform stood empty. No one had come to welcome her. Silver Creek existed as a rough logging settlement, old mud-caked pathways and weather-worn signage carved from determination and pine. Several woodsmen idled near the tavern entrance, their chatter dying down as she approached. Their expressions registered shock at her appearance. One let out a long, low whistle. From the mercantile emerged a stocky, sandy-haired man with a trimmed beard, pulling his hat from his head. He barely reached her shoulders. "Miss Morgan?" His tone already carried uncertainty. "Mr. Prescott," she responded with rehearsed composure, extending her gloved hand. "A pleasure to finally make your acquaintance." His handshake ended abruptly, gaze jumping between her face and footwear repeatedly. "You never said anything about your diet?" Her eyes held his steadily. "No, I didn't. You're considerably taller than I am." "That's correct," she confirmed plainly. He retreated a step. "I require a wife who suits the position." "The position?" she questioned. "A proper wife should look upward at her husband," he muttered tensely. "Not downward." Laughter drifted from the tavern behind him. Ella straightened her posture even more. "Your letters mentioned wanting a companion, someone to share life's journey." "I expected an ordinary woman," he stated, then flinched. "I mean, someone of typical proportions." Though her heart fractured, she maintained her composure. "You want someone diminutive enough to go unnoticed." "I'll book your return journey," he announced, already backing away. "The eastbound departure runs tomorrow morning." "I exhausted my savings getting here," she replied. "My apologies," he mumbled, turning toward the store. "I truly am sorry." And like that, he vanished. The loggers outside continued watching. One hollered, "Want assistance with your luggage, miss?" "Appears rather small in those large hands of yours." More snickering followed. Ella remained silent. She stepped off the platform, boots sinking into the muddy thoroughfare. Her suitcase seemed to have doubled in weight within the past hour, yet she lifted it as she'd always done without protest, past the mercantile. Past the taverns, past the church with its flaking white exterior she walked, continuing until she reached town's edge where towering pines stood silent and majestic. She settled onto a downed tree trunk, her breath forming clouds in the chilly air, and let the quietness wash over her. Then from somewhere behind, pretty impressive perspective from up at this height, wouldn't you say? She spun around, startled. A man stood several paces away, arms folded, shirt sleeves pushed up. He exceeded her height by a few inches, sporting a full beard and piercing blue eyes. His voice resonated deep, calm, untroubled. "Didn't intend to startle you," he said. "Gabriel Blackwood's the name. I oversee the northern logging operation. Martha Webb runs a boarding house nearby. Comfortable accommodations, warm food. I'll escort you there if you'd like." She paused. Why offer help to me? Nobody deserves abandonment, he stated plainly. Besides, individuals like yourself, those who don't conform to expectations, they're usually the ones who transform everything. She studied him, then gave a nod. All right, Mr. Blackwood. Gabriel, he corrected Dot as they headed toward Silver Creek's glowing windows. She sensed the townspeople staring. But with Gabriel walking alongside her, the scrutiny felt less piercing, less cutting. Tomorrow might bring departure or staying, but tonight isolation wasn't part of her reality. For the first time since departing that train, that felt like enough. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains of her second-story quarters at Webb's establishment. Ella awoke beneath the substantial quilt, muscles aching from yesterday's lengthy travel and heavier emotional toll. She remained motionless briefly, gathering her thoughts. She'd been abandoned on that platform, discarded like mismatched cargo. Yet she hadn't shattered. Not completely. Something within her, whether pride or determination, refused to diminish. Downstairs, coffee's aroma and frying bacon scent drew her from her bed's warmth. Entering the kitchen, Martha Webb turned from the cook stove with a genuine smile. Good morning, Miss Morgan. Rest well? Better than anticipated, Ella responded, instinctively ducking through the doorframe from years of habit. No need for stooping here, Martha commented, eyes sparkling. My husband stood tall as timber. Had every doorframe heightened when we constructed this place. Said he'd grown weary of living hunched over. Ella straightened up. Such thoughtfulness was uncommon. Thank you, she said softly. They shared breakfast eggs, bread, and strong coffee. Afterward, Martha dried her hands on a kitchen towel. So what's next for you? Ella gazed at her empty cup. Staying, at least temporarily. I possess sewing abilities, practical garment work primarily. I could earn my accommodation. Martha didn't hesitate. The small chamber off the rear porch served as my sewing area. It's yours now. Excellent lighting, adequate space. I'd welcome seeing it utilized again. I wouldn't want to burden you. Nonsense, Martha interrupted, waving dismissively. Plus, my winter coat requires mending, and I've lost patience for delicate needlework. By late morning, Ella had unpacked her sewing supplies and converted the dusty chamber into a modest workshop. She ran her fingers across the fabric she'd transported from Boston durable wool, cotton, several calico scraps. Work awaited. Word traveled quickly. By noon, 3 women had visited with dresses needing adjustments. Mrs. Peterson, the town's previous seamstress, arrived with a shawl and declining eyesight, grumbling, my hands aren't reliable anymore. But yours, you've got keen vision and steadier fingers. While measuring, a recognizable silhouette filled the doorway. Miss Morgan, Gabriel Blackwood said, removing his hat. Ella straightened. Gabriel, I assumed you'd returned to camp. Heading back now. Just stopped to see if you remained in town. I am? Good. A pause? Planning to stay a while? Possibly. Gabriel nodded. Then I've got a proposition. My crew destroys their equipment constantly. Nobody up north can sew a proper seam. We need a capable seamstress. Ella blinked. You're offering employment? I'm offering consistent payment for repairs. Could prove profitable for both of us. That's quite generous. Gabriel shifted, appearing slightly embarrassed. Not generosity. Just practical thinking. You've got talent. I've got torn clothing. Seems like a fair exchange. She smiled. All right, you've got yourself an agreement. Before departing, Gabriel paused. There's a church gathering next Saturday. Entire town attends. Good opportunity to meet people. Perhaps secure more work. Will you go? Not typically my preference, he admitted. But perhaps this time. Ella watched him depart, tall and sturdy and quiet as the surrounding forest. The following days blurred past in fabric and thread. Women delivered worn garments. Men dropped off split-seamed shirts. Mothers appeared clutching damaged overalls in exhausted hands. Ella worked with a rhythm she'd forgotten. She craved. Still, the stares persisted. At the tavern, they dubbed her the giant seamstress. Whispers trailed her through every street, but she kept her chin high. She'd always done so. One evening, while stitching a coat's interior, Martha peeked in. "That Mr. Blackwood sent word. Says one of his men will arrive next week with repair work." "Already?" Ella asked, surprised. "Told his workers, finest stitching west of Portland. You've earned yourself an admirer." Ella looked down at her work, a smile forming. She lacked a husband, lacked a home back east anymore. But here in a pine-bordered corner of Oregon, she possessed thread, purpose, and perhaps something just beginning to bloom. Not a romance story yet, but its opening chapter. Saturday arrived with a sky so brilliantly blue it appeared freshly washed. The church social dominated Silver Creek's conversation dessert tables spanning the hall's entire length, fiddles warming up near the pulpit, roast chicken's aroma already escaping through open windows. Ella stood before the mirror in her room at Webb's, hands smoothing her finest dress, a rich burgundy wool garment with copper embroidery adorning the neckline. It wasn't brand new, but it was hers. Self-sewn, well-fitted, robust at every seam, practical yet proud. She pinned her hair up, allowing a few gentle curls to frame her face, then examined her reflection. No corset, no slouching, just a tall woman in quality clothing, prepared to be visible. Entering the church hall, the room's volume dropped slightly. She'd grown accustomed to it. She'd experienced that silence throughout her upbringing, the kind that fills space when a woman defies expectations. But this time, surprisingly, it didn't wound. Let them observe. Some nodded, some whispered, some smiled with that particular polite astonishment reserved for tall women who carry themselves with belonging. Martha Webb swept in like a vessel at full sail. "You look absolutely stunning," she whispered. "You'll make them regret every word spoken behind your back." Ella laughed, tension dissolving like thread sliding through fabric. "That's not my objective." "No, but it's a lovely side benefit," Martha said with a wink, for an hour. Ella circulated through the gathering under Martha's guidance, meeting townspeople. The physician, the educator, the postal widow. They inquired about her sewing, complimented her craftsmanship. One woman, eyes level with Ella's shoulder, leaned in saying, "You know, I've never been able to reach that highest pantry shelf." "You're already a godsend?" Then the music ceased. Or perhaps it simply faded because Gabriel Blackwood had entered. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in fresh trousers and a pressed shirt that still seemed slightly foreign on him. But nobody noticed any discomfort. He resembled the wilderness dressed for Sunday service, and his gaze found her immediately. He crossed the room with deliberate, measured steps. Several acknowledged him. None dared interrupt. "Miss Morgan," he said upon reaching her. "You look lovely." "As do you," she replied, her voice unexpectedly gentle. "I didn't anticipate your attendance." "I mentioned I might," Gabriel said. "Never said I wouldn't." That was quintessentially him. Understated, direct, and completely genuine. They conversed, drifting toward the room's periphery where candlelight danced across hardwood flooring and fiddle music resumed. The Reverend greeted them both enthusiastically, gesturing toward the dance floor. Gabriel looked at her. "Would you like to dance?" Ella hesitated. "It's been quite some time." "Then we'll both be out of practice together." She accepted his hand. It felt right. They moved tentatively initially, finding their rhythm. For once, she didn't need to look downward. Their eyes met evenly. Their steps synchronized. She felt weightless, not just physically, but emotionally, as if someone had released a constriction she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. As the melody intensified, they turned once, twice. Gabriel's hand rested firmly yet gently at her back. He didn't lead her like something requiring control. He moved with her as an equal. "You're staring," Gabriel murmured. "I'm unaccustomed to this," she confessed. "Most men struggle dancing with a tall woman." Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "Most men are idiots." After the reel concluded, they stood by the refreshment table, each holding cider. Ella glanced toward the rear pews and froze. William Prescott stood watching, eyes narrowed, mouth twisted between a sneer and smirk. Gabriel followed her gaze. Ignore him, I intend to. But William wasn't finished. He crossed the room, polite smile artificially positioned. Miss Morgan, he said. Mr. Blackwood, didn't expect seeing either of you tonight. Gabriel tensed. We're here like everyone else. Naturally, William said smoothly. Though certain pairings might inspire gossip. Ella tilted her head. Let them gossip. I've endured talk my entire existence. It doesn't alter who I am. William's smile stiffened. Silver Creek maintains its traditions. Then perhaps those traditions require updating. William's eyes flicked to Gabriel, then returned. Well, enjoy the dance floor, Miss Morgan. Though I wonder, do your feet even fit on it? It was a petty jab. Gabriel stepped forward, but Ella stopped him with a hand on his arm. She met William's eyes directly. I'd rather possess feet too large for the floor than a heart too small for honesty. William flushed. You're making an error. No, I just stopped making yours. He departed, boots echoing across the hardwood. Gabriel exhaled. You handled that better than I would have. Ella turned back to him. You give me strength. He smiled, small but sincere. You already possessed it. I simply reminded you where it was. The remainder of the evening passed in warmth. Fiddle music, conversation, and the pleasant buzz of something resembling love's beginning. As they stepped into the frigid evening air, Gabriel escorted her back to the boarding house. The moon hung low above the pines, casting silver illumination on snow-dusted rooftops. At the gate, he paused. Thank you for the dance. Thank you for appearing, she said. It meant more than you realize. Gabriel looked at her, something resembling awe in his eyes. You are extraordinary, Miss Morgan. And before she could respond, he tipped his hat and turned toward the road, his tall frame disappearing into darkness. Inside, Martha glanced up from her knitting. Well, you've got him contemplating more than lumber tonight. Ella smiled quietly. She didn't respond. She simply touched her collar where his hand had rested and climbed upstairs, for once, not attempting to occupy less space in the world, but finally daring to fill it. The days following the church gathering unfolded like gentle snowfall, soft, gradual, but impossible to disregard. The air had grown colder, mornings sharp with frost, and Ella found herself settling into an unexpected rhythm. She stitched by daylight in the boarding house's back chamber, her machine humming like a lullaby. Orders arrived faster than she could complete them, repairs for loggers, dress alterations for the pastor's spouse, a custom coat for the general store clerk who blushed presenting each new garment. She even crafted curtains for the schoolhouse, sturdy wool ones, retaining heat better than the thin lace previously hanging there, but work alone didn't fill her time. Gabriel returned to the northern camp the day after the social, and with him went a peculiar quietness that settled over Ella's days. He'd left a note, neat handwriting on thick paper. You dance better than most men I know who swing an axe. Returning in a week. Until then, keep standing tall. Gee. She kept the note tucked inside her pattern book, reading it more frequently than she'd admit to anyone. A week passed, then two. The second Saturday brought a snowstorm, the kind warning of extended winter ahead. The town hunkered down, fires lit in every hearth, chimneys expelling smoke into gray sky. Martha Webb, never one to be rattled by weather, prepared venison stew and maintained a teapot all day. Ella assisted with chores and tried not glancing at the road too often. He'd promised to return today, but the road remained empty. By evening, as wind intensified and snow fell thick and fast, concern crept in. Ella sat at the parlor window, hands idle from sewing, staring into the dense white curtain that had consumed the town. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps on the front door. Martha answered, revealing a young man, one of Gabriel's loggers. His face burned red with cold snow caked into his boots and sleeves. Miss Morgan? He asked, eyes scanning until they found her. Yes, she said, already rising. It's Mr. Blackwood. There's been an accident. The words struck her like a gust of wind to the chest. He's alive, the logger added quickly, but badly injured. Tree slide caught him and his horse up on Raven Ridge. He got the other men out, but didn't make it clear himself. Martha was already grabbing her medical supplies. Ella didn't ask questions. She simply pulled on her boots, her coat, her scarf. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "Where is he?" "Dr. Phillips's house?" They didn't dare transport him farther in this weather. The snow reached knee-deep in places, drifted against buildings, clogging the road. But she pushed through, heart pounding against her ribs like a drum. Inside the doctor's house, the warmth overwhelmed. 4 loggers huddled near the fire, faces pale and drawn. The scent of pine, sweat, blood, and antiseptic filled the air. "He's asking for you," Mary Simmons said quietly, appearing at her side. She wore an apron stained with blood, her expression tight but not unkind. "You can go in, but briefly." Ella nodded and stepped into the back room. Gabriel lay on a cot barely accommodating him, bandages wrapped tight around his torso and head. His right leg was splinted and elevated, the wool blanket stained at the knee. But his eyes remained Gabriel's. Fierce, focused, and even now filled with that impossible steadiness. "You came," he rasped. "Obviously," she whispered, sitting beside him and taking his hand. "It's not as severe as it appears," he attempted to joke, but winced as the words escaped. "You're a terrible liar," she murmured, brushing hair from his forehead. "You should stick to forestry." He chuckled, then winced again. "I'll recover," he said. "Just despise lying still." "Then you'll need to learn patience," she said. "Fortunately, I'm excellent at teaching it." A long silence passed. The fire crackled in the hearth. Outside, the storm howled. "I thought about you," Gabriel said suddenly. "Every day." Ella's throat constricted. "I thought about you too," she whispered. The door opened gently and Dr. Phillips stepped in. "That's sufficient for now, Miss Morgan." "He needs rest." Gabriel's fingers clung to hers as she rose. "Come back tomorrow?" he asked, eyes heavy. "I'll come back every day," she promised. And she did. Over the next week, Ella arrived each morning, sometimes with fresh bread, sometimes with books, sometimes with nothing but quiet presence that Gabriel clung to like breath. He improved gradually. The fever never materialized. The splint held. The pain began dulling, but the day Mary Simmons brought him broth and found them laughing quietly at one of his terrible jokes, Ella saw something shift in her eyes. Not jealousy, not even regret, but recognition. Mary saw what they were building. And though she didn't speak a word, Ella understood this was going to grow more difficult before it grew easier, because Silver Creek thrived on gossip. And not everyone wanted witnessing the tall woman and the scarred foreman find something resembling happiness. But Gabriel was healing, and she would be there every day, standing tall at his side. Even when the storm returned. By the second week's end, Gabriel could sit upright for longer periods, though he still winced whenever pain caught him unexpectedly. The bruises on his ribs had faded to yellow. The gash above his eyebrow was healing cleanly, and Dr. Phillips seemed cautiously optimistic. Ella hadn't missed a single day. Each morning she arrived with something: fresh linens, stew Martha had simmered overnight, a book, a smile. Sometimes she stayed an hour, sometimes the entire afternoon, quietly mending garments at his bedside while he dozed or shared stories from camp. But Silver Creek was beginning to notice. It started with whispers, then glances, then questions disguised as concern. Was it proper for an unmarried woman to visit an injured man daily? Was she merely his seamstress or something more? And wasn't it curious how quickly she'd become essential? Martha predictably brushed it off with a snort. "These people don't know what to do with a woman who walks taller than their expectations," she muttered, slicing carrots into the stew pot. Ella tried not letting it bother her. She'd endured worse. But the eyes followed her on Main Street and the general store at church. William Prescott didn't help. He'd stopped pretending to ignore her. Now, every time they crossed paths, he offered her a smug smile, as if watching a slow disaster unfold. Once, passing her on the boardwalk, he tipped his hat and said, "Some folks just can't help but make spectacles of themselves." She didn't respond, but it lingered. Inside the doctor's house, things felt safe, warm. Gabriel's presence, injured or not, had gravity to it. When he spoke, she listened. When he smiled, something in her chest unfurled. But Mary Simmons Mary was always there. Helpful, efficient, and perfectly poised. Ella couldn't shake the feeling that Gabriel's former fiancé knew exactly what she was doing. Nothing overt, nothing cruel, just a steady presence, a history hanging in the air, unspoken but undeniable. On the 18th day of Gabriel's recovery, Dr. Phillips made his recommendation. "It's time," he said to both of them. "You're stable enough to relocate, but no stairs, no excitement, and someone needs monitoring you." Gabriel looked at Ella, then at Martha. "I have a room prepared," Martha said without hesitation. "The back parlor has a pull-out couch and plenty of sunlight." Ella blinked. "You never mentioned that." Martha shrugged. "Didn't want you worrying about logistics while he was still bleeding into the sheets." Gabriel chuckled and winced. The next morning he was carried, stretcher style, into the Webb boarding house by two of his loggers who grunted the whole way but looked proud to be helping. Ella was already there, smoothing fresh linens, fluffing pillows, and trying very hard not appearing nervous. He settled in quickly. Too quickly. By the second day he was restless. By the third he was brooding. On the fourth he requested his crutch. "You can't walk yet," Ella said, arms crossed. "I can attempt." "You're not attempting anything until that leg heals." He grumbled but relented. Later that afternoon, as snow fell thick and silent outside the parlor windows, they played cards. Martha had taught them an old variant of poker, and Gabriel accused Ella of bluffing like a professional. She smiled. "I've spent my whole life pretending I wasn't hurt. You think I can't fake a flush?" They laughed, and for a moment everything felt light. But that night there was a knock at the boarding house door. Martha opened it to find William Prescott standing tall and smug on the porch, his coat pristine despite the snow. "I've come to speak with Mr. Blackwood," he said. "Why?" Martha asked, arms crossed. "Town business." Martha didn't budge. "You can speak here or not at all." William stepped inside, eyes narrowing as he spotted Ella seated beside Gabriel's couch, mending a shirt. "Well," he said, "isn't this cozy?" Gabriel leaned forward slightly. "Say what you came to say." "The Railroad Commission vote is in 4 days," William said smoothly. "You've missed every meeting, every draft. Some might say you've forfeited your say in the matter." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "I'll be there. In your condition?" "I'll be there," he repeated. William's eyes flicked to Ella. "Of course you will. Never underestimate the power of inspiration." Ella stood up slowly, tall and unflinching. "Careful, Mr. Prescott," she said coldly. "You're mistaking kindness for weakness again." He turned without replying, slamming the door on his way out. Gabriel exhaled and leaned back against the pillows. "He's going to try something. I know. We need a plan." "You need to rest." He looked at her. Really looked. And something shifted in his eyes. "You're not afraid, are you?" "No," she said quietly. "Not anymore?" Snow blanketed every rooftop in Silver Creek like a thick quilt, softening the building's edges but not the tension winding through town. Everyone knew about the vote, about the land, about Gabriel Blackwood's injury, and increasingly about Ella Morgan. The whispers had changed. She was no longer just the tall woman rejected by Prescott. Now she was the woman standing beside Blackwood. And depending on who you asked, that was either a sign of courage or foolishness. Thursday arrived fast. Gabriel insisted on attending the council meeting. Injury be damned. Ella didn't argue. She simply ensured his crutch was steady, his coat was warm, and that the 4 loggers escorting him knew to keep anyone from obstructing his way. The town hall was packed. Standing room only. William Prescott stood confidently at the front, flanked by maps and charts. He wore his best suit. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I welcome you all," he said, "to a vote that will shape Silver Creek's future." Gabriel was wheeled to the front in a modified chair, his injured leg extended. He looked pale, but his voice was strong when he finally spoke. "You all know me," he began. "You've seen me shoulder timber, pull men from wrecks, fight fires, and bury friends. I don't wear fancy suits or know how to flatter, but I do know the land, and I know when it's being sold off too cheaply for too little gain." He gestured toward the map of the proposed northern railroad route, cutting straight through old-growth forest. "They'll take the trees, flatten the ridge, and when they're done, they'll leave. What'll be left for us?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several council members exchanged glances. Ella rose. Heads turned. She stood taller than anyone else in the room, not just physically, but in presence. "I came here as a stranger," she began, voice clear. "I was rejected before I could unpack my suitcase. But I stayed because some things are worth standing tall for." She looked at Gabriel, then back to the crowd. "This town doesn't need fast money. It needs vision, sustainability, integrity. You have a man here who has bled for this community, who understands balance between forest and future. If you turn away from that, you're not just cutting down trees. You're cutting down the very thing that holds this place together." Silence followed, then murmurs, nods, a few cheers. William stepped forward, calm but icy. "Let us not forget," he said, "that the people pushing against this vote are not native to Silver Creek. They do not represent our history." Gabriel sat up straighter. "You're right," he said. "I'm not from here. I chose to be here, and I stayed through 10 winters, 10 summers, 10 years of building something real. Can you say the same, Prescott?" Judge Porter banged the gavel. "Enough. We'll vote?" The council convened in the side room. The crowd buzzed. Ella's heart pounded. When they returned, Judge Porter cleared his throat. "By a vote of 3-2, the council has decided against the northern expansion. The southern route will proceed." The room erupted, some in protest, most in relief. Gabriel closed his eyes, breathing deeply. Ella squeezed his shoulder. They'd won. But it wasn't just the land that had been defended. It was the truth of their worth. The following week, Gabriel moved permanently into the web boarding house while he healed. The town's attitude shifted slowly, gently, like frost melting into spring. Women brought Ella fabric and pies. Children waved when she passed.